cumbia un ritmo, ritmo sin igual. Nadie se quede sentado.
On the road with Selena y Lodinos.
The traveling, the hot, the cold. She needs a break, Abraham.
Can't like him.
I mean it, Dad would freak out.
You don't want to be called difficult
Lots of bands are difficult, some impossible. They still get records made.
because they sell records.
We might really need a different drummer.
There's no Beatles without Ringo. And there's no Selena without Suzanne.
I don't know if that's where the betrayal happens or not. Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, I'm Brian Brushwood, and more importantly, I assumed that was a Selena biopic, but most importantly, I know that those are the words you say right before you fire your drummer.
Oh yeah, I guess you know when you said
You start by saying you're the backbone. There's no way that somebody
There's
goes,
no
"Dunk,
Cordkillers
dunk, dunk," could be
without Brian.
replaced.
that is the trailer for Selena the series. This is a retelling of the life of Selena, the Smash Tejano singer. This is the first of two parts that Netflix will put out. This first part comes out December 4th, 2020, with 9 episodes. That's on Netflix.
And the last time we got a video telling of the Selena story, Jennifer Lopez was created. So, you know,
they cloned her just for she
didn't
came
exist.
straight out of the celebrity oven.
Thank you for creating me.
Yep. I want to welcome to the show someone who was just with us. It seems like yesterday because time has no meaning, but it's actually been a while. Nicole Lee, welcome back.
Happy to be back. Yeah. I was created by Cordkillers as well. Before this, I didn't exist before this.
This is where we realize we lost our original Nicole. Somebody cook me up a new one.
There you go.
A lot of people think Nicole got her start as a fly girl on In Living Color,
There you
but
go.
it's not true. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Nicole, it's great to have you back. Good to be here and talk about all the cool stuff, TV, movies, and cutting the cords. Let's start with our primary target, which is a memorial. Quibi just launched apps for Apple TV, Android TV, and Fire TV, but Quibi also announced it will shut down on or about December 1st. I think this is the real reason Nicole joined us today. Jeffrey Katzenberg told Deadline Wednesday, quote, "There was no question that keeping us going was not going to have a different outcome. It was just going to spend a whole lot more money without any value to show for it."
Dude, they're the Andrew Yang of platforms.
Wait, how are they the Andrew Yang of
Because
platforms?
Andrew Yang was the one who said, like, I could keep running for president, but we all know I ain't going to make it. Let me save all y'all the money. And that's exactly what they're doing.
We don't know if Quibi will get a job as a CNN commentator. The information sources say that NBC Universal and Facebook declined to buy Quibi's catalog of video. They couldn't find any other buyers, so hence their decision to just shut it down. But hey, it's still for sale. If you're looking for some content or technology assets, they're still willing to deal.
Now, forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but what I remember most about Quibi that I thought was fairly progressive, maybe short-sighted in terms of a profit sheet, was the fact that they would allow creators to bring their intellectual properties, then they would continue to own them afterwards. So what exactly would you be buying? Certainly
I think you would be buying the remainder of their licenses, possibly, or there may be other deals. Deals are all structured differently. There may be some deals that allow you to take stuff, but yeah, I think that's why they don't buy the content, because there's an expiration date on how long your license is good for. Nicole, on a scale of 1 to Quibi, how sad are you to see them go?
Is Quibi the high mark or the low mark?
Exactly. That is the question.
Quibi is your time limit to give us an answer. By the way, you're done. No, sorry.
All right, it's over. You know, I've read all the hot takes here. It was doomed from the start. Nobody wanted this. Nobody asked for this. I don't know if that's entirely true. Like, I'm sure some people liked it. I guess like it won an Emmy, didn't it? I think.
Oh yeah, they had some decent
Emmys.
content. Yeah,
it has some decent content, and they have a huge stars. I think their problem was that they went so hard so fast. Like they spent so much money. they hired all of these big movies, big TV celebrities right from day one, before day one even. And I think it was just maybe a little bit too hot too soon. And if they just maybe like spent on like one show just to like try it out or something, maybe it would have gone somewhere. But they just went hard, fast, and then COVID hit, and then nobody was going anywhere, and then everyone wanted to stay home instead of watching on their phones, and it was just a perfect storm of just things not working out. And yeah, I think it was about to happen, bound to happen in some ways.
A lot of people have been saying Quibi's going to die for a long time. And I've been one of the few people saying they're not dead yet. I also never thought they would succeed. If you go back when the launch of Quibi, I was like, I don't think this is going to work, but who knows? But I was also like, don't call them dead until they're dead. Well, this is the day you get to call them dead because December 1st.
By the way, of course, means today's the day where I want to do nothing but sing their praises. Let me tell you some of the smart things that Quibi did. First of all, they were creator focused. They while ultimately it was bad for the bottom line, like we just talked about, they gave extraordinary creative control to the source, but they did make the fundamental attribution error of believing that if they built it, they would come. They were very story and creator focused, and weirdly, almost openly hostile to what the clientele would actually want. I think it's insane that they never had a free option. I think it's insane that they thought like, what people want is more restrictions on how they watch things. Never what? Maybe your phone's too big. 7.5 inches? No, sir. This belongs in 3.5 inches and only after 8 o'clock because that's the scariest hour. They made a lot of really dumb mistakes, but it was a noble experiment. I mean, this is one of those things where while quote unquote, we called it from the beginning, I celebrate that anybody bothered to try. It's the Edsel. It's the Tucker 47, 49. I forget when the Tucker came out. But basically, there are nuggets of good ideas that were tried, unfortunately packaged up in something that was never going to sell because people don't want paywalls from day one, and you can't get a passionate fan base when nobody knows what it is they're buying. When your whole ad campaign is to explain what a Quibi is, that's probably a hint that you're headed in the wrong direction. But having said that, I would love to sort of pick apart and digest what were the good ideas that were in there.
Yeah, because I feel like the issue with Quibi was they looked at multiple projects before them from people like Yahoo, from people like Verizon. I think the most famous is Go90. Verizon's like, oh, we're going to make content for the mobile generation. And they fixed all the wrong problems. The problem with all of those has been nobody asked for it. Nobody wanted it. And that's not to say that you can't create a service that nobody asked for and have it be successful. That's just really rare and really hard. And in my opinion, Quibi, Go90, and all of them before were trying to fix a problem that nobody had. Nobody said like, gosh, I love this mobile video, but I wish it was in a separate app from YouTube and only had people who were paid to make it. And the problem with Verizon Go90 wasn't like they paid people to make it, but not famous enough people. Let's pay higher quality people to pay it. It was that nobody wanted that. When people are watching video on the go, they either want familiar stuff like talk show clips or clips out of out of the news, or they want random funny stuff. That's what TikTok has shown. TikTok is the successful approach to this, was just let a bunch of people make stuff and the good stuff will rise to the top. That's still the success in mobile video. So what I think is interesting with what you're saying, Brian, is Quibi came up with a lot of really interesting and really cool approaches to content that weren't solving a problem and were presented in a way that people are like, yeah, but I don't want that. So could you take what they did cool and apply it to other things that might benefit from them?
You tickled an idea that I think there's something there. You mentioned that, I forgot exactly what you said, but it was something along the lines of, it's very rare to be somebody who knows what the customer wants better than the customer itself. But those that do really pull it off. And I think maybe one of the examples we're seeing about that is kind of Apple TV Plus. We'll talk a little bit about the Apple TV Plus content in a little bit, but Apple was well positioned to weather a very long storm until they found out what their breakout hit was that was going to draw people in. And it turns out that the first 1, 2, 3 at-bats were not what they thought were going to be the out-of-the-fence slam dunks. That's a sports metaphor. I don't expect everyone to get it. Yes, out-of-the-fence
slam dunks. We'll explain it to people who don't know sports later.
But they were wrong about all those things. But because they were weathering a long storm, they eventually found their hit, which we'll reveal later in the episode. It's called a radio tease, people. But meanwhile, Quibi spent every dollar that they got from every investor, gave it all to the content creators. They had no runway. They needed to be a success right out of the gate. And that was insane. And that was never going to happen. And it's tempting for us to, they're certainly going to say, COVID, what are you going to do? But the truth is, Apple TV Plus is a success because of COVID. If I hadn't gotten COVID, I wouldn't have spent so much time watching television that I eventually got around to watching the entire Apple TV Plus back catalog. And that's because Apple TV Plus is focused on the fundamentals and they had the cash on hand to weather the storm. And Quibi flat out didn't. That was a bad call on their part from the beginning.
I think, Nicole, to your point, they put too many restrictions on their own service to the point that it couldn't accidentally become successful. Like Quibi might have found its way to doing something, but they didn't let it do that.
And the interesting thing you mentioned, the things it did right. I still remember one of the highlights of Quibi that one of my colleagues told me was the whole thing about you could watch it in vertical and you turn it horizontal, you can watch it both ways. It's like, oh, it's actually kind of neat. Like he said, sort of begrudgingly, that is kind of a cool thing, but that's only interesting for so long. It's only an interesting gimmick for, I guess, for 15 minutes or however long a Quibi is.
Yeah.
And then you're just back to watching it the normal, whatever way you want to watch it.
Well,
whether or not it's a TikTok vertical.
It reminds me a little bit about the gimmick of 3D in the early days, where it's like at first 3D was amazing because somebody could reach out towards the into the audience and you were like, it's like it's right there. And then all of a sudden you realized every 3D movie was artificially writing scenes where characters needed to reach out towards the camera. And then that's where what seems to be with the landscape versus portrait, where it's like because you had to shoot so wide that people could watch it one way or the other, it's like all of these shots were artificially action in the middle with extra garbage on the sides or extra garbage on the top and bottom. I think you're right.
I think Turnstile, again, is an example of something that could have been really cool. The idea that you wouldn't forget whether you were holding your phone wrong because it would always be right, no matter how you looked at it. If they had got more experience in runway and lasted 2 or 3 years, we might have found out like what the huge advantage of that was as people used it and experimented with it. But we never got there. So now it's a technology that I think somebody should buy and keep playing around with, but it wasn't the killer feature. It was a thing that you wouldn't notice if it worked right because you wouldn't have to change the position of your phone. You'd always pick it up right.
Yeah.
It was they fixed the problem with Verizon Go 90, which was that you had to go 90. But again,
that's right.
Nobody wanted
that
fixed.
Like, Go 90 is a perfect service. Only fuddy-duddies want to tell me what way to hold my phone.
You go 90, old man. Yeah. So anyway, rest in peace, Quibi. You all can feel the schadenfreude of having been right that it was not going to succeed. But I'm curious. I'm curious if little pieces of Quibi, either content that gets made into regular shows or movies or the Turnstile technology or some other technology they have shows up in other stuff.
I wouldn't be surprised if that artist-focused mentality showing up like 3 or 4 years from now. Somebody has a similar ethos and they do become successful and everybody acts like they invented the idea of
right. Like somebody who works at Quibi right now who's getting laid off goes off and starts their own thing with what they learned from there. That could be interesting.
Yep.
In the meantime, you are the one that determines whether Brian and I get laid off or not.
Yeah, man. You want to know the difference between us and Qui-Bye? not only did we start 8 years before they were even announced, we're still here, and it's thanks to our God, this is awful. Thank you to all of our
big time in Quibi. Wow.
Thank you to our 1,000 plus bosses who keep us loud, live, and independent for over a decade now. Head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers, just $1 an episode. If you enjoy the insights that we bring to you guys, $50 a year, $25 a piece, and out of that, we'll even manage to keep food on Bryce's table. Head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers, guys.
Yeah, don't let Bryce starve. Patreon.com.
So hungry.
You get ramen and you'll like it.
Bryce, if you have the energy, let's start How to Watch.
I think I can do that.
Spoiler alert, he likes ramen.
Ramen's delicious. At launch, Sony's PS5 is going to have a whole media center inside of it. It will include Netflix, Disney Plus, Apple TV, Twitch, and YouTube, with apps for Hulu, Peacock, and Amazon Prime Video on the way shortly after launch. Apps will live in a dedicated media tab, so you will no longer have them in the same interface as your video games. And Sony said you'll no longer need to download the apps through the PS Store. An Apple TV app is also coming to the PlayStation 4.
This is kind of astonishing to me, just in terms of how much the landscape has changed. Forgive me, what was the most recent Xbox, Bryce? Xbox One?
The Xbox One is the last one. The new one is the Xbox Series.
Yeah, so the Xbox One, this would have been, I believe, 2015-ish at E3. They pushed really hard on the DVR capabilities. They talked about the Xbox being the entertainment hub for all types of entertainment, not only video games, but also, video content. And I remember that we generally lauded that at the time, but it was resoundingly rejected by gamer community. They loved the fact that the PlayStation new offering, you got to rent or you got to keep your games, you got to sell them afterwards. Everything was games focused. And now, to me, this is not necessarily a testament to either Sony getting anything right or wrong so much as the culture changing, where now everything about this sounds obvious and right, and yet would have been exactly the antithesis of what was applauded for the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the antithesis. PlayStation 4 had all the streaming apps that were available at the time. They had several of, including Netflix. It's just that they didn't focus on it, whereas the Xbox, in its launch, focused on it, and it got a lot of backlash because of that.
Correct, but certainly we were seeing a pivot. We're seeing more interest than PlayStation showed
right,
last
now
generation.
Instead of hiding like, we also have some media apps, they're like, hey, we got this cool media tab.
Exactly.
Look at this.
And
It'll be your streaming thing.
That's a testament to the fact that we're all getting cozy with the idea that apparently it was too far ahead of its time to certainly to put in E3, the Electronic Entertainment Expo, at the time.
Nicole, what do you think about this?
I think it really cements the role that game consoles have always been sort of multimedia consoles in a way. I think for a while now, I've used Xbox to watch DVDs and movies and stuff like that. So the fact that they're bundling it all in one shot like that, it really does show that you don't need necessarily a Roku or a Fire TV stick or something. You could just get this, and you could have your games and your thing all in one thing. And it totally makes sense. I would be surprised if Xbox doesn't do the same as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have to spend a few $100s for the PS5, so it's not like it's a replacement for a Roku. But if you're buying it anyway for the games, then it should be the thing that's already hooked up to your TV. You shouldn't have to buy something separate. And I think Sony's smart to make sure that that's going to happen. The thing that struck me about this was Apple TV, Peacock. Like, we are now getting a stable of 6 or 8 channels that have to be on here. There's lots of other channels out there. There's Tubi and Fubo and, Sling TV and all that stuff. And I remember Sling TV was on Sony, and I don't see it listed here. That doesn't mean it's not coming. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But the ones they're highlighting in the stories about this are I think also the big ones, right? They're Netflix, Disney Plus, Apple TV, Hulu, Peacock, and Prime Video.
Yeah, man, is there anything that is an obvious misstep in here? I'm not saying. I mean, I'm not
I
seeing
mean,
anything.
maybe
does
not
it
making
have
you
HBO
download
Max?
them. No, I did not see HBO Max listed here.
Oh,
yeah, that's
I
a
also
good.
don't
That's
see
a,
maybe.
that's
CBS or whatever. Sorry, what are they changing their name
Paramount
to?
Plus.
Yeah, that's
CBS
right.
All Access. They haven't changed it yet to
Okay.
Paramount Plus. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a deal it is to have them pre-installed versus downloaded. I don't really remember any of these being the type of app that I'm like 7 whole minutes.
I think you'll still download these. They're just not in the PlayStation Store. The download is on a separate page, I believe.
Yeah. You probably go in and say it's like a TV interface where you're like, oh, there's all the things. I imagine there'll be more than just these eventually, but it's interesting to see what's on the launch here, and that Apple TV is coming to the PS4 as well. I mean, Apple TV continues to show up everywhere, but Android. I'm very curious why they're not showing up.
I got another question for you.
Very
and
annoying.
this is a little segment I like to call Teenager Watch, which, by the way, sounds creepier than I think I intended this
Like,
to.
yeah, you have to keep in mind that Brian is a father of 3 children when he says that. Yes.
One of the things that my 16-year-old daughter does is she's always on her iPad, and she specifically loves the fact that she's able to do all of her interaction, even video game playing, with the picture-in-picture Netflix or whatever doing. Have we seen on a game console a picture-in-picture play a video game while you're also watching a TV thing?
I believe so.
Yes, the Xbox One, as well as the new consoles will have the snapping stuff.
Yeah, was that DVR only, or was that?
No, I think you
any
could
of
do
these
live
apps?
TV. They have apps, so you could do apps on the side.
Okay,
So you could have Microsoft Word while you're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could also do it in Windows 3.1.
Well, okay, yes. You understand what
But it
I'm
has
saying.
snap
There's a
on it.
difference
I do,
between what
I
you
do.
can do and what people are pushing.
Yeah,
allowing
They
that.
showed off that the PlayStation 5 has some snapping capabilities like the Xbox, as well as a picture-in-picture. So they showed off you watching someone else play a game while you're playing a game. It would be crazy to me if that didn't extend to media. But who knows?
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, let's move on to what to watch in Under Surveillance.
Like real estate, it's all about location.
Under surveillance.
Research from the analysts at Real Good indicates Ted Lasso is the most popular show on Apple TV Plus, taking up 20% of the clicks between July and September. Now, it got to number 1 in the period of July through September, despite not releasing until August 14th. So it missed out on a month and a half of the period and still ended up number 1. The Morning Show with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon was second in the period at 15%, followed by Defending Jacob, a show that starred Chris Evans.
Well deserved. Ted Lasso alone merits a full year's subscription to Apple TV Plus, in my opinion.
I 100% agree. Nicole, do you wish to stay on the show? Do you like Ted Lasso?
Or do you have
not?
anything bad to say to Ted Lasso?
I've only launched Apple TV once in the past 12 months, so I can't say. I'm sure it's a great show. I haven't watched
Well,
it.
Listen,
a friend of mine
Nicole.
would say that's some
I don't
stinking
have it- I
thinking.
don't
You
have
got to
an
get
Apple
Ted
TV
Lasso
Plus.
in your life immediately.
Nicole, if you launch Apple TV Plus for only one show, launch it for Ted Lasso. Did you have the service? Did you get it free with a device or something?
I don't like that. Yeah, like I think the only reason why I got it because I bought an iPad I think 3 months ago, and that was the only reason why I was okay. I'll try it.
I would even argue
I launched it.
I would even argue it's worth paying to get Ted Lasso, but if you've got it for free, absolutely, watch 2 episodes, and then if you don't like it, that's fine. You can let us down easily. But I agree with Brian. I think it's one of the best things
Well, I'm not
on
going to
TV
tell you
for a
if I
long
don't
time.
like it. Great.
I like how our story about Ted Lasso being successful for Apple TV and being its final hit show has turned into us trying to convince Nicole to watch it.
It turns out the real story is our Lasso fragility. We're not willing to listen to anybody who doesn't love Ted Lasso.
I actually know a few people who don't love it as much as we do, but it doesn't surprise me that it's number 1 because
I've heard great
it's so
things.
widely
Like not
praised.
just you guys, but just in general, I've heard great things. Yeah.
And it does seem to be the thing that's really pushing up against the wall of people going like, yeah, but I'd have to watch it on Apple TV Plus, right? Like, do I want to get that?
Yeah.
Do I want to figure out how that works? Like, and that's what you want to hit show is to kind of move more people over that barrier. Because once you're used to a new service, it's not a big deal anymore.
My God, Tom, do you realize who we've become? We've become those mid-90s annoying people who won't shut up about how much better the Mac is versus the PC. We're now Apple fanboys who won't shut up about how much better
Listen,
it is on the
man.
other side.
I know that everybody gets Windows and everything. I know that everybody watches Netflix, but Netflix doesn't have Ted Lasso. So, all right. Disney Plus has ordered a series adaptation of the movie Willow. John M. Cho, the director of Crazy Rich Asians, will direct the pilot of Willow, set to go into production next year. Jonathan Kasdan, who worked on Solo, and Wendy Marickle, who worked on Arrow, will be showrunners alongside Chu. So Chu will be also the showrunner as well as directing the first episode. Ron Howard and Bob Dolman, who created the original Willow, Ron Howard was the director and Dolman was the writer, will be executive producers as well. I assume in sort of a consultative role for them.
Forgive me if this is insensitive to, I don't know what the right way to ask this, but I know that when it came to Game of Thrones, the whole series kind of hinged on, I believe the apocryphal story is that George R.R. Martin said the only way this becomes a TV show is if you're able to get what's his name to play the
Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, Peter Dinklage to play this particular role because they're, he's a little person who exactly has the chops and the talent and the personality and everything's exactly right. Given that the main character of Willow is also a little person, do you think there's any kind of similar discussions when it comes to the casting side of things?
You mean for Peter Dinklage? Or Warwick Davis?
Well, no. Is it going to be definitely Warwick Davis? You probably.
I think I don't know. They haven't mentioned anything about that. Those are all good questions. There's nothing solid about that.
This is what I'm asking is what you suppose.
I hadn't even thought about it, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's.
I just assumed okay, I want this to be a good story, right? I hadn't even got to the casting yet. Because there's so many questions, right?
I mean, this
Nicole,
has just been ordered.
Yeah. Nicole, did you watch Willow?
Yes, I remember watching it, but don't ask me about any details. Anything else.
If I may, Nicole,
it's been a long time.
It sounds like your experience is mine, which is I'm pretty sure I saw it in 5-minute chunks, none of them in the same order, all on HBO as a kid. I'm pretty sure it's all there.
I watched it. I just don't remember a lot of it.
Yep.
I'll watch it again probably before this comes out. So
because there's also Val Kilmer's character, who is emblematic.
Yeah. I feel like Hollywood, there's no shortage of square-jawed, conventional hero types.
That's a good question.
Kevin Pollak was in it? Wow.
Wow. Man.
Wow.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, there you go. Anyway, but you threw me off, Brian, because I hadn't even thought about casting.
Sorry.
I was still wondering. I was still on the original question that everyone has in these situations, which is this a good idea? Do we need Willow to be adapted into a series? And if so, should it continue on the story 20 years later? Should it be a reboot?
I mean, we live in a world where I thought Battlestar Galactica was cheaply made, cheesy sci-fi schlock, and it turned out to be the best scathing indictment of post 9/11 politics in all of science fiction history. We live in a world where the Lego Movie was one of the best movies of the entire year. So it's I've long thrown up my hands and been all anything could be great.
All right,
I will say that every fan of Willow that I've talked to has been really, really excited about this TV series. They've been just hungry for it, I guess, for so long. And so
okay,
I think there's a market for it. I don't know.
Yeah. All of it just to say I believe.
Have been hungry for it.
Okay. Yeah, good. Then let's push your belief, since you mentioned Battlestar Galactica, a little farther. Simon Kinberg of 3 X-Men movies and Dylan Clark, who helped reboot Planet of the Apes, are teaming up on a Battlestar Galactica movie for Universal. It will reportedly be a full reboot of the story, which is odd because, as we've reported on Cordkillers before, Sam Esmail and Michael Leslie are working on a Battlestar Galactica series for Peacock, which is reportedly going to be a reboot as well.
Your Honor, I would like to withdraw my objection. I mean, I don't want to be. Look, I didn't think we needed a new Batman reimagining so soon after Batman and Robin was a colossal disaster. I was wrong. It ushered in the greatest era of Batman stories ever and Christopher Nolan's dominance in that arena. But we also saw too many Spider-Man movies come out because Sony didn't want to run out its 5-year and 9-month lease and had to release something, so they kept rebooting everything over and over and over again. I will, as always, hope that it is good? Question mark.
So one's a reboot of a movie, one's a reboot of the series. Am I reading this right?
Well, one is a movie rebooting the series. The other is a series rebooting the series.
Confused.
It gets very confusing. The original Battlestar Galactica was conceived as a TV series, but the pilot episode was also released as a movie in some markets. And so then they did a TV series on Sci-Fi with a total reboot. Now they're going to reboot it again, both as a series and as a movie that appeared to be unrelated to each other.
That's okay.
Tom, you tend to be one of the most optimistic people I know. Will you please give me your authentic assessment of how optimistic you are about these two reboots of a reboot?
Listen, I like, I like your chances when you have more attempts.
That's true. That's true.
Right? Yeah. And
that's good. That's true.
The other thing to keep in mind is the Battlestar Galactica movie has been in development for a long time with other names attached. This doesn't mean it's coming out. This means they've now handed it to Simon Kinberg and Dylan Clark to try their hand. This also means that maybe that Sam Esmail, Michael Leslie thing isn't necessarily going to pan out either, and they want to hedge their bets with a possible movie development because Esmail has sort of reportedly been pushed away from the development, and it's mostly Leslie. Esmail wanted to do a cross section with the sci-fi version from Ronald D. Moore, and now that Leslie is more in the forefront, apparently that it's back to being a reboot. So maybe they're worried that that's just not going to work out, and they want to have a few more attempts.
You made me realize that if both of these come to fruition, that means at least one thing we can report on for sure is one of them will be better than the other. However much you like or dislike the one, there'll be another one.
If they both happen, yeah, right. It would be rare for them to be tied.
That would be a rare thing indeed.
So just a little bit better, just a little bit.
A couple weeks ago, we put out or we didn't put it out. I was about to take credit for something. We showed a clip of Animaniacs that was released. Now there's a full trailer out for Animaniacs with more of the same irreverent humor that was displayed in that original clip. Animaniacs, of course, returning to Hulu November 20th.
I would like to point out that the first literal line in this trailer is that there's nothing worse, more shameless, more of a cash grab than a reboot. And then they're handed a giant check and then they sing the praises of Hulu.
I love it. It's great.
And what we said about the clip is true. This trailer, it feels like the original vibe, but without feeling dated. Like it's captured the spirit of the original Animaniacs, but totally with modern references, etc.
It is wild how the modern references really pop. Like they casually work into a song without mansplaining or something like that, where it's like all of a sudden it's like you lose yourself in the Animaniacs-ness of it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's right, this wasn't always here. This is a new thing.
Yeah.
This totally reminds me of Looney Tunes on HBO Max in the sense of like how Looney Tunes, the new Looney Tunes on HBO Max, like has that same feel of the original, the same sort of like weird, wacky, Bugs, the same old Bugs Bunny, and the same kind of safe for kids, but almost not safe for kids. You know, that's sort of like weird borderline like humor, and that's giving the same kind of feel. And I personally would love watching it. You know, I don't know about kids of younger age, but
you're talking about my segment, Teenager Watch.
Gotta come up with a
my
new name.
daughter is gonna watch it.
Brian is a father of 3 children.
Gotta get a new name.
Finally, Fast and Furious announced that Justin Lin will direct the 10th and 11th films in the series. We're still waiting on the 9th to be released. Of course, it's in the can. But Justin Lin's going to take us all the way to the end, apparently, because the 11th Fast and Furious will be the last one. And just like Han is dead, spin-offs like Hobbs and Shaw may continue. So it probably won't really be dead just like Han.
Man, I say keep going forever. I want to see them having a drag race down the nursing home with their motorized wheelchairs. Keep on going.
No, I fully expect like Fast and Furious 11, quarter mile at a time. It's all about family for one last time. Come and join us for Fast and Furious 11. 3 years later, Fast and Furious 12. You thought it would never happen, but guess what? Like, I mean, they're going to ride the spinoff thing, right? They'll be like, oh, there's no more Fast and Furious movies, but we've got this special like Hobbs and Shaw, and we've got Hobbs and Shaw 2. They'll ride that for a little bit. Then they'll come back with 12.
Yep.
No doubt. No doubt about it. All right. Let's wrap up a few other things. Archer is still a thing. We're still doing Archer, renewed for a season 12 at FXX. Amazon has ordered sci-fi drama Light Years from Legendary Television about a couple who discover a chamber buried in their backyard, which leads to a strange deserted planet. M. Night Shyamalan's Servant has released a teaser for its second season on Apple TV+. Adam Sandler is going to star in a movie adaptation of the book The Spaceman of Bohemia for Netflix. The book tells the story of an astronaut who talks to a creature from the beginning of time as he travels to the edge of the galaxy to collect mysterious ancient dust. That will be a Netflix space movie that will happen. A Netflix space series that won't happen is Away, that has been not approved for a season 2 by Netflix. And a new trailer for The Mandalorian came out. Season 2 showing most of the people you're familiar with season 1 showing up in season 2.
Oh my gosh. Quick reminder. How close are we to season 2 dropping?
Friday.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Friday.
Okay, good.
Friday.
Yeah. Friday as we record this, yesterday if you're listening to this on Saturday.
Last week if you're that far behind.
Right. And if you're listening to this in January 2021, like the whole season's out, you might as well go watch it.
Oh my God.
All right, let's
Tell
talk
me
about
what the future is. Tell me.
What happens? What happens to Baby Yoda? Is it? Are we still here? Okay. Let's talk about what you've been watching. Starting with you, Nicole. What's something that's been on your screen?
So this actually was on my screen like many months ago, but the things I've been watching recently are not that great, so I didn't want to recommend them. So the one thing that I did remember from watching a few months ago was this reality series called Legendary. It's only on HBO Max, nowhere else, and it's about ballroom culture. It's a reality game show about ballroom culture,
like ballroom dancing.
I love
right?
it.
Yeah.
No. It's about underground ballroom culture. It's like it's about LGBT culture, ballroom culture. It's kind of like how I would say it's like again, it's underground LGBT culture in from the 70s, but and it was kind of done to celebrate trans culture, that kind of thing. But definitely watch it because it has Jamila Jamil, there's Megan Thee Stallion, and a bunch of other stars as the judges. And I think it's really interesting. Like if you're into RuPaul's drag show, you will 100% be into Legendary. It's that kind of bombastic costumes, crazy dances, crazy like stunts and performances. If you're into that, you 100% be into this.
So it's a reality show then.
It's a reality show. Yeah.
Sounds like surreality show.
Got it. So it's called Legendary on HBO Max. Brian, what about you?
HBO Max, yeah.
I introduced my kids to, I've got this nasty habit of telling my kids to come in the room and I make them watch the first 5 minutes and they're allowed to leave as soon as they want to leave. But then they always end up watching the whole movie. So we watched Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And it's interesting, for as much as I tend to think of Coen Brothers productions as fairly edgy and brittle might be a word. This is a much wackier comedy than I remembered it as. I hadn't seen it since I watched it in the movie theater, but it's pretty silly. It's a sillier movie than I remember. If you want to revisit it.
I love this movie. Yeah. This is one of the movies that I've always tried to have in my collection, whether it's DVDs, Blu-rays, streaming, etc. Well, you did your job as the paterfamilias. Well done.
I got that joke.
Because you just watched Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
I wouldn't have gotten it beforehand.
I watched On the Rocks, the new Lost in Translation for the Generation Z. This is Bill Murray and Rashida Jones in the Scarlett Johansson role. And it's not taking place in Japan. It's taking place in New York. And it's about her relationship falling apart. So that's the same. Bill Murray plays Rashida Jones' father. and she suspects her husband of cheating, but he's a really good guy. And then her father's kind of a swinger player, a character. And so he's like, I don't know, I think you better investigate. And hilarity ensues. It's definitely got a tone like Lost in Translation, but it's a little less of the surrealness because you're not trying to emulate jet lag. I guess it's got a little more reality to it. But one thing my wife told me when we were watching this, I didn't realize, is Rashida Jones originally had been considered for the role that Scarlett Johansson got for Lost in Translation. So this is Sofia Coppola just kind of going and saying, all right, let's make a movie with you and Bill Murray after all.
So how close in tone, like you were talking as though it might as well be a reboot of it. Was it just...
Yeah, a lot of the humor and pacing is the same, but it doesn't have that weird, like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of in a dream that you had in Lost in Translation. It's a little more grounded in that respect, but you know, the funny parts are very familiar, and the color tone of it feels very similar to me. I liked it. I thought it was delightful. Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, over the weekend, I had a chance to watch the newly released Borat subsequent movie film as a follow-up to the hit 2006 prank mockumentary. In this follow-up, Borat and his daughter Tuta come to America to give her away to Vice President Mike Pence while she struggles with coming of age, having grown up in a very repressive culture. It's goofy. It's got the same kind of bombast as the original film, you know, showing some of the nastier sides of Americans, especially when there's cameras and there's an immigrant in front of you who kind of is saying stuff and starting, you know, sparking maybe nasty, nasty thoughts that you wouldn't say if you weren't in front of a camera. This is also been in the news. You might have heard because one of the final scenes of the film features Rudy Giuliani holding an interview with Tutar in a hotel room, and he gets kind of handsy with her. It's a scene. Also very timely. This was filmed as the world started to respond to COVID-19, which makes its presence known in this film. Not to mention it's being released now after the president tested positive for the coronavirus just weeks ago. So that's Borat 2. This is Amazon Studios joint. So if you have Amazon Prime Video, you can stream it now on Amazon Prime for free. I thought it was pretty good. It's wacky. It's got a lot of the kind of squeamish, awkward moments. There's a good bit here that they kind of show in the trailer a bit where she eats a little decorative baby on a cupcake, and then they go to what looks like an abortion center, and he says, "Well, I put the baby inside of her. I need you to get her out." And it's in a state where they don't let you do that. So that's a Borat subsequent movie film, which is the short version of that title. It's on Amazon Prime Video. If you guys, is anybody here going to watch this?
I already watched it. I watched it instead of the debates, and I think I came out the winner. I liked it quite a bit. Man, the actor who plays Borat's daughter was a standout hit. I mean, she was really fantastic. It's weird at times. It's like they're not even pretending that these are real people. Like, I mean, it's the first movie kept up the conceit that all of the, quote unquote real people scenes were with real people. But this one, it's like they stretch credulity so far that it's like, just go with it.
There are a lot of scenes where I would love to know how they shot it. I know I've already seen a story that one of the scenes that they do with the two old ladies in the temple, they apparently Sacha Baron Cohen had to break character to tell her that no, this is an anti-Holocaust denial bit, so please just play along. And I feel like there's probably more of that in this film than
I got the impression the whole movie is that way, but didn't enjoy it any less for that.
Yeah, actually, I saw it. I had seen just the ending of it with friends first before I watched the rest of the movie. And that's where all the Rudy Giuliani stuff is. And once you've seen all that, it kind of loosens up the rest of the film. So you're like, I'm not waiting for that. I know what that looks like. So maybe a pro tip for that. Tom or Nicole, anybody, you guys gonna see this? Maybe?
Nah.
No. All right. So if you've got something we should look out for, please email us, cordkillers@gmail.com. Thank you.
Hey, folks, we got all kinds of stuff going on besides Cordkillers. If you want to join in on it, you can find out all the things I'm up to at freetomnewsletter.com. You can both free me from worrying that people are finding out about my content, or also just get a free newsletter. It means both. freetomnewsletter.com. Go subscribe. I'll tell you about any stories or novels I've got coming out, any new podcast episodes, all that updated every week. Just an email from me to you. Go check it out.
Are you, friend to friend, are you going to do another NaNoWriMo since we got...
I am, yeah.
Do you keep people apprised of that as it happens, or is that sort of like that's a private thing and then you
No. I'm happy to talk about it. In fact, if you sign up for my writer Patreon, I'll be talking about it quite a bit there as I go through it. I may even be brave enough to put a link to my Google Doc up so you can see it in action and see all my typos as I go along. But yeah, I'm really excited about it.
That takes guts.
Yeah. Hey, and of course, a quick reminder that all of the shows that we do here are powered by our friends over at Doghouse Systems. You need a new computer. You know it. It's finally time. Head on over to doghousesystems.com/rogue. Use promo code rogue at checkout. You'll get an SSD drive or SSD free. But most importantly, man, you want somebody who's going to take care of you, and they will absolutely take care of you.
Let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
As Netflix predicted, its subscriber growth slowed last quarter, Q3, to a rise of 2.2 million subscribers. Missed its own forecast, though, of 2.5 million, so it slowed a little a little more than they thought. Netflix expects 6 million new subscribers in Q4, so they think by the end of the year, they'll still have 34 million new subscribers, so that would be a record. Netflix also announced it will test a 48-hour free streaming event called Streamfest in India, December 4th. Remember, they don't do free trials anymore, but they might be doing more promotions like this. Netflix announced deals with 3 anime studios in Japan and 1 in Korea to make new content for them. And Netflix says its movie The Old Guard was its biggest hit this summer, reaching 78 million households, followed by Enola Holmes with 76 million, Cobra Kai, which they licensed from YouTube, reaching 50 million. And they also said Kissing Booth 2 and Project Power were hits.
Man, Netflix continuing to invent new ways to win. like they're all like, well, we already won that way. Meanwhile, the Justice League Snyder Cut is fast becoming a new production all on its own. Much of the original cast, including Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, I never know where the emphasis is, and Ray Fisher have been brought back for supplementary reshoots. Jared Leto, who played Joker in Suicide Squad, is being added with newly shot footage, as is Joe Manganiello's Deathstroke. Nailed it. We talked about the possibility, wishing that we could experience talking about this from 2 different perspectives, but I think we settled, Tom, on both of us are going to watch this when it comes out, right?
Yeah, I'm still thinking about it. Don't get me wrong, but I'm so curious about this because I don't know about you, Nicole. This now looks like it's just a reboot. It's a new miniseries, and he's taking pieces of the original movie and then just creating a miniseries because it's going to come out in 4 parts. It's a miniseries. It's not going to be a movie. Like it feels like a whole new creation that's kind of a remix of the original movie.
Maybe it's going to be better?
I think that's the intention.
Well, it also that we wanted to have the experience of one of us watching the movie, the other watching the miniseries, and talk about it as though we saw the same thing. Just to see
it's going to be harder and harder to do that now.
That'd be amazing.
AT&T said HBO Max added 8.6 million customers in Q3, double the 4 million added last quarter. HBO Max now has 38 million subscribers, ahead of its target for Q3 of 36 million. So they're doing well with HBO Max. They still have room to grow right within their own subscribers. About half of HBO customers have not activated their HBO Max subscriptions. That's about 12.7 million people that they could still get to add to their subscriber numbers for HBO Max. AT&T also said AT&T TV Now lost 37,000 customers, slowing its losses, leaving it at 683,000. Remember, though, 2 years ago, it was 1.86 million, so they've fallen quite a bit. AT&T also launched Warner Media Ride, a service that streams free content from Cartoon Network, CNN, TBS, and more to cars that subscribe to the AT&T Unlimited Connected Car data plan.
And Wall Street analyst Craig Moffett estimates pay TV subscriptions have dropped 22.8% from its peak back in 2014. And by the end of 2024, analysts expect that fewer than half of U.S. homes will subscribe to a traditional pay TV service. I still can't figure out whether or not I feel like that's too late or too early. I don't know what we're supposed to expect.
It's like a wizard.
Yes, it always arrives exactly on schedule.
Sinclair, the company that bought the 22 regional Fox Sports outlets, 21 Fox Sports outlet and Yes Network, will no longer offer its channels on Hulu Live. Both sides blaming each other. So if you're keeping track, YouTube TV just dropped the Sinclair channels last month. Dish, Sling, and Fubo all have cut them earlier, and that pretty much leaves AT&T TV Now as the only major streaming provider who carries the Fox Sports regional channels online. I always feel like I have to make it clear. We're not talking about FS1 and FS2. Those are owned by by the Fox Corporation. We're talking about Fox Sports Ohio, Fox Sports California, Fox Sports New York, etc. Those are the regional networks, and those are the ones owned by Sinclair. I'm not sure what Sinclair's up to unless they're going to create their own streaming service to carry these for some reason.
And I don't know enough about the entanglements on the local level. I know that Sinclair is a juggernaut of having all of those local affiliates, and they, made political news for their must-read segments on the news. But the fewer people carrying their stuff, it seems like the less power they're wielding. But then again, sports is one of those things where you kind of have a lock on, if you're the only one carrying the home team's show, then, well,
I mean, if there's something in these agreements that stops them from carrying it on their own service, they want to launch their own service, and they're just trying to run out the clock and get all of these agreements to not be enforced anymore, so they can launch, like, you want Fox Sports, get it from the source, Sinclair, and then they just sell it in all the markets and rake in all the money themselves. That's the only way this makes sense to me.
Yeah, man, too far in the weeds for my skills. Variety of sources say Apple, Netflix, and a few other streaming services explored the possibility of acquiring the James Bond film No Time to Die. MGM reportedly wanted a deal worth $600 million. This sounds insane to me until I think about it, and then it doesn't sound insane at all. And then I flip back to it thinking this is insane.
Nicole, is it insane?
Yeah, that's insane, I think.
Okay.
$600 million is a lot.
Well, but also
it's
like
$600 million.
Well, take a look at Disney Plus, Soul not having a theatrical release, not being even released in any kind of premium video on demand, whatever, just straight to the back catalog. Congrats if you have Disney Plus. You now have, what should gross domestically only $200 million plus, as Pixar movies usually do. Internationally, even more than that. All of a sudden, $600 million doesn't sound like a crazy number.
I think what MGM might have done here was say, look, we don't want to have to delay this thing. It's costing us money to delay. The amount that we need to make off this is $600 million. You want it? and Netflix and Apple, did some back of the envelope calculations and decided, too rich for our blood. Like, I think it was probably pretty straightforward. Although there are also sponsorship deals that could have complicated this. So like Range Rover and such, where there's merchandising deals that go along with when the movie comes out. They're going to do all these campaigns to support each other. So that may have made it too complicated to have a deal too. But if the $600 million makes me think MGM just said, look, if somebody will pay us $600 million, we don't care if it doesn't go with the theaters. That makes us whole. We're good.
Yep.
All right, let's get to the dispatches from the front. Oh, real quickly before we do that, Ken from Chicago pointed out that Spectre made $880 million worldwide. This would have just been domestic. The worldwide is distributed by Universal, not MGM. So that would have had to be a separate deal. So it would have been $600 million to cover the domestic. That's a good point. All right. Joe Howd, EDD, wrote in, hey guys, remember when Lucas and Spielberg said we'd be paying $50 a head for movies? They were warning that in the future, movie theaters would become a specialty experience and you'd have to pay $50 to go to the movies. Joe was reminded of it in our discussion of theater rentals, paying a hefty fee of a few $100s to rent out a theater for yourself. I invite you to wildly speculate, writes Joe. What's the chance that the COVID crunch on theaters moves us towards this kind of market where you pay $50 a head for movies?
I think we're already there. I think that they were right. They were ahead of their time, and all we've seen is, just a time crunch thanks to the restrictive nature of the COVID.
Nicole, would you pay $50 to see a movie?
No, but then that's me. Like I wonder
like
if
once
it's
safe to go
is it per head? If it has to be per head? Okay.
Yeah.
Per head, then probably
That's what
not.
they
If
were
it's
saying.
like 2 people, maybe.
Well, if it's 2 people, it's close to what you pay
per-
now
Yeah, true.
in San
Yeah, the per
Francisco and
head
LA
thing, that's-
anyway.
Yeah, I know. That's right. I think per head is where it kind of stops me. I don't think so.
We also got a lot of great emails from folks who were telling us how much their cable and streaming costs are after our story about the average being around $33. Brian, you cobbled all these together. What's the upshot?
Yeah, we got sort of a representative sample here. Steve Lamb sends in, he says Netflix, Prime, Apple, Lowcast for $5, which is an interesting one I didn't see coming. That, of course, is the nonprofit. HBO Max for $12, Hulu for $12, PBS for $5, which is another one I might not have thought of. But he ends up coming up with $74.99, still well below traditional cable.
That's his internet cost.
His internet cost is... that's right. You're right. I just added that.
So on top of that, that's what, 27...
Well, you don't know. Everybody has internet. Everyone wants to count the internet in their streaming, but everybody who has cable TV also has internet.
Sure.
So internet isn't an additional cost.
Weirdly, I think it's just shy of $74.99. I think it's like just shy of $70.
His actual streaming cost is close.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's funny. It just
it's
worked out.
61. About
Okay.
$61.
All right.
David wrote in, his grand total was $66, and he had Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Funimation now, which is another specialty one that I think is worthy of being remembered, Disney Plus, YouTube Premium, which I think is a good investment, Amazon Prime, and Curiosity Stream is also a boutique one, only $1.67 a month if you pay annually at $20. And then finally, we got a couple of other emails. Let me see if I can get this one. There we go. Michael from Texas says that he pretty much does YouTube Premium, Disney Plus for $70 a year, Apple TV Plus, and that's about it. So no Hulu, no Netflix, CBS All Access only when Discovery returns, which, of course, that's one thing that we've speculated about, but don't know how many people practice the whole turning it on, turning it off thing.
Right.
Yeah, so it looks like we got a couple who are below the average and a couple above the average, which would put us at the average.
Science.
My math is a little fuzzy there, I know, but it is science, exactly. Nicole Lee, so good to have you back. Thanks for being with us.
Not a problem.
If folks want to follow
I'm
what you do
here.
on the internet, where should they go?
Yeah, so they can check me out at twitter.com/Nicole. And I want to plug a new thing I'm trying out. I'm trying to do a newsletter, nicolelee.substack.com. And I'm still kind of feeling it out. I'm probably going to be doing a mixture of tech and maybe some food stuff because I'm interested in food and food history and culture. So check it out. It's free for now. I might have a thing later, but yeah. Check it out.
Yeah. So Nicole Lee, all one word?
Nicole Lee, one word, .substack.com.
Excellent newsletters. They're cool. Everyone should do one. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, also on diamondclub.tv, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll see you then.
Hey, Tom Merritt.
Yes, Brian Brushwood.
Know who I love even more than my own children?
Your other children?
No, not my wife. I know what you're saying. I love our $5 patrons. These are the people that keep us loud, live, and independent. Thank you so much, $5 patrons.
You know what? I love them more than not life itself, because then I'd be dead and I couldn't appreciate them, but really, really, really close. And I'm so thankful that they are here to make this show happen.
Thank you so much to all of our $5 a month patrons. You guys are wizards. You're champions.
Thank you, everyone.
You're heroes.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.